have a habit of checking the time before I start speaking, but I have a special clock. It has two functions. One tells you the time, and the other the exact location. By the way, this is the most advanced technology. The time that I get is an atomic time that is the most accurate time possible. Because when I look at the time, my clock is telling me now. The time is now. And when I take a look at the GPS, it tells me the place is here. And in essence, in a nutshell, that's what I've learned from my experience. To be present at the moment. To engage in every moment with intensity. To live every day as if it was the last day of my life. I was a kid, maybe 8 or 9 years old. I went to the market in Tel Aviv with my father. And on the way back, my father was carrying all the produce, so he had like a few baskets on one hand and a big watermelon under the other arm. And we were walking towards the car when a tourist stopped us to get some directions. He was lost. And my father was quite confused, didn't know what to do. Finally, he puts all the shopping bags on the floor. He handed over the watermelon to me. He looks at the tourist and said, "Look, I really don't know." I got a couple of degrees. My first degree is in Jewish philosophy, and then I did another degree in business administration. Most people tell me consistency. Business administration, Jewish philosophy, same thing. I left Israel at the age of 21 searching for my own adventure. You see, my strong belief is that we go and search for adventures, we climb mountains, we cross valleys and seas, but actually we're searching for ourselves. I arrived in a beautiful, beautiful place one morning. I was already a year with a backpack on my shoulders, and I arrived in a very precious place, the border of Peru and Bolivia in South America. This border is a lake that separates both countries. I was there early that morning because the ferry, after the market day, returns all the peasants back to the different islands in the lake. So once a week, there's an opportunity to visit these unique communities that live deep inside the lake. And I was there on the docks, and finally I was led to the ferry by a child. I jump into the ferry, and I see it's full of people already. 5, 6 backpackers, and about 15, 20 peasants. A minute or two later, the boat leaves the docks, and here we're making our way into the mist, leaving the town behind. When suddenly there's a scream from behind, "Espera, wait!" And we turn around, and we see a backpacker. Obviously, his backpack protruding up and down his back, and he's running, and he's screaming again, "Espera, wait!" And I feel we should go back for him. This is one of ours. And I look at the motorman, and I see that nobody else is concerned. Like the backpackers don't care. And the peasants, they don't want to go back for some gringo. So I just withdraw myself, and I say, okay, I won't interfere either. And the guy one more time, espera, desperately, because that's the last ferry, and he missed it. And I look at the motorman, this very colorful Indian, and he's looking back and forth, back and forth. And that moment is crystal, because I can see exactly the work of destiny. This man was hesitating if to go back and forth. His decision will completely change the course of our lives. My life will be a different life. His life, the guy waiting on the docks, will end. He will die.
What'd I tell you?
We left civilization, flew into the Amazon. For 4 days, we were walking deep into the Amazon. And after 4 days, we arrived to a small community, Sariamas. This was the last. There's nothing past that community. For 4 days, we were walking down a trail. Now, there's no trail. And when there's no trail, how do you make the next pass? Do you take the machete and cut the vegetation? There's no trail. The only things that we could follow were little tributaries, rivers, creeks, and because the water source will guide us through the forest. But walking by the water is the hardest, because the closer to the water, the denser the vegetation. So what we did, we jumped into the rivers, into the creek, and we're trying to walk as much as we could in the water. Completely wet, our stuff heavy, starting developing blisters and rashes. It wasn't easy at all. And we walked like that for a day, and nothing to eat, and we're starving, but we have no food, because Carl said it's very silly to take food into the Amazon. We have rice, we have beans, and we have a shotgun. So we'll hunt. But on the river, everything changes. Carl is like a shaved Samson. The only one of us that doesn't know how to swim is Carl. So on the raft, Kevin is taking leadership, but Carl is not about to give leadership up. So both of them are fighting and screaming, and Kevin is giving instruction, Carl is giving the opposite instruction, and we are split. Marcus follows Carl, and I stayed by Kevin. The river became very narrow as we entered the canyon. The sheer cliff started building from both sides. We started shooting rapids when we hear a terrible noise, and we see that huge rock, and then came the heat. And before we know it, we're on the boulder, hanging on the raft, climbing back on the raft, on the boulder. The other side is the waterfall. We stand on the waterfall with our raft trapped in the middle. We are hanging on the raft, jumping back on our feet, looking down, and both of us are shattered. That's the waterfall. I look at Kevin, and I see that Kevin is completely pale. I know we are in big trouble. Kevin is looking down at this vast amount of water. We were really desperate, completely desperate. In the middle of this white water, to be stuck at night. Kevin said, we cannot do that, so here's what we're doing. You hold the machete. He said, you hold the machete in your hand. I'm going to jump. If I'm going to make it to the right bank, you throw the machete after me. I'll climb up the cliff, cut some vines, make some rope, come down and take you out. I was crying by that stage because I knew he was going to die. And I was crying for him, but I was crying for me because I knew he's going to die and he's going to leave me alone here. So I was holding the machete, looking at him, and then he gave that huge jump. He flies in the air, he's taken by the water. I look, and then I see him pops. He's popping straight to the right bank. He's jumping out, he's bleeding, he's holding his knees slashed, he's screaming, the machete! I throw the machete in the air, and then everything moves, screeching. The raft lost its balance. By jumping, he pushed the raft off the rock. I'm falling into the waterfall. I'm screaming, Kevin, don't leave me! He's screaming, hold on to the logs. I'm throwing myself on the logs, I hold on to them, and I fall into the waterfall. And then I'm inside the guts of this river, tremendous pressure on my chest, pitch black. I just close my eyes, I'm afraid to open my eyes. I hold and I feel I'm bursting, there's no air. I cannot take it anymore. And then suddenly the raft just pops out, and as it pops out, I grasp for her, it feels like gold, it's so precious. And I look back for a minute, second. I see Kevin. Kevin is there, waving the curve. I don't see Kevin.